Welcome back to Higher Ready. In today's video, we are going to see about hands-on on looping statements in Python. In part 1 of day 14, we have seen what is looping statements in Python and we have seen some real-time examples. So in this video, we are going to see a syntax for for loop, while loop, nested loops, and we are going to see a hands-on on those looping statements in Python as well. In the previous video, I've also explained how for loop and while loop works in real life with real life examples. So if you missed the part 1, make sure you watch that so that you can get a clarity in this video. Yes, let's get started. So generally in Python, if I want to print a hello 3 times, what I'll be doing? I'll generally be printing hello like this. This is definitely time consuming, right? So instead of doing that in that way, what you can do is you can use looping statements for printing something so many times. You just need to mention the number of times it needs to be printed. So yes, let's get started. So for loop in Python, we do have two different types of looping statements in Python. One is for loop, the other one is while loop. So for loop, this is the syntax. For variable in syntax, and then what are all the conditions you need to print. What are all the printing statements you need to print that need to be added on the next line on the following lines too. Usually in the problems we have seen, usually on the codings that we have did, what we did is we just assigned value to every variable, right? But in looping statements, we won't do that. What we'll do instead is you'll just add variable like this. This is how you add value to a variable. The value of this variable will be added on the next line, or else in the sequence we'll be adding a range that will be considered as a value for this variable. That is how it works. And while looking at this example, you can clearly understand how it works. First, what I'm doing here is, so this is a program I'm using for printing a number from 1 to 5. Printing list of all numbers from 1 to 5. For doing that, first, I'm initiating my coding by using for. So this is how I'm initiating my for loop. Next to that, I'm adding my variable name as num. For num in range of, I'm specifying the range from 1 to 6. Next, I'm giving the printing statement. Before printing statement, I have given the indentation. The syntax is something that you need to closely observe. Here, I've added colon, as similar to how I added colon for if and else conditional statements. Even for looping statements, you need that colon. Only then Python understand if it's a loop or not. So here I have specified as 1 to 6, right? But I'm printing 1 to 5. Why should I specify 6? This is how generally for loop works. So if it starts with value 1, next to which I'm assigning value of 6. Let's consider that is the nth value. So instead of considering n, it will consider n minus 1. So I have 6 here. Instead of considering 6, it will be considering it as 6 minus 1. What is the value? It's 5, right? So that's how the output of the problem, output of this coding will look like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The 6 will not be taken into consideration. See the output. So in for loop, it works in a way starting value to ending value and ending value minus 1. That is how it works. So in the same for loop that can be used for printing my string, for using my list, and even for printing particular values from starting to ending value, and I also can specify the number of steps it need to move. So all these things I can do with my for loop itself. So now let's see how to use for loop for looping through a list. We have seen about a data type list, right? Yes. So in that list, so I'm creating a simple list which contains 3 elements: apple, banana and orange. So inside this list, I just want to print all these elements one by one. On the first line, I want apple. On the second line, I want banana. The third line, I want orange. So for doing that, what I'm doing is, after specifying this list of all values inside a variable, I'm calling that particular element, first element, using this variable fruit. Next, I'm adding in. So for fruit in fruits means, so for element in fruits, that is what it means. So for variable in fruits, for value of list in fruits, that is what it means here, and I add fruit here. And next line, I'm adding print of fruit. So the output would be like taking all the elements of list and it will be printed on line by line manner. So the output would be like apple, banana, and orange. So here, instead of fruit, you can also use any variable name. But whatever I add here as a variable name, that should be specified here. Some people might misunderstand that I have given fruits here. So removing the s, it becomes a singular variable. So it became like this. No, don't have that kind of misunderstanding. So instead of fruit, I can even give some other variable name like veg. So if I use veg there, I should call it as veg here as well. So what would be the output? The same output. So whatever I specify it as variable there, that should be called here. That is how for loops work. Next, I'm using loop to print elements of a string. So in list, we do have elements, right? But in string, do we have elements? No. Instead, we just have letters. So first, I'm specifying a string inside a variable name. The string name is Python. So I'm using for loop to print the characters, I mean the letters of the string. So what would be the output? Just guess it. If it is printing letters, and let me know in the comments if you guessed it right. This is how the output would be looking like. So it just printed each and every letters of the string one by one and line by line manner. So for that, I'm using for loop like this. Instead of using ch here, I can use any variable now. But whatever I use as variable name, that should be called here as well. That is very important. Next, I told you, right? So we can even print the number of values based on assigning the step. If I specify the range as 0 to 20, if I want to print the numbers that are divisible by 4, what I'll be doing is for n in range, starting number, ending number, then which step need to be printed. Next to which I'll be adding printing statement. So the syntax you should never forget. So only after giving an indentation you should give the printing statement. So it starts with 0. So on the fourth step we do have 4. After 4 we have 8. Then 12 on 16. But why we didn't print 12? So in for loop it will not be taking the lost elements. Instead it will reduce 1 from it, right? So it is 19. So before 19, until 19, we do have just 16. Those are the elements that are divisible by 4. That is why we stopped at 16. Next, we are trying to understand how break and continue could be used in for loop. So break is generally used for stopping the loop. Whenever I see this condition, I'll just stop the loop. And continue is used when I just want to continue after that condition satisfied. I just want to skip that particular part. So whenever I want to skip it, I'll be using continue. Whenever I want to stop the loop, then I'll be using break. Never get confused on this because this looks simple, but it always confuses us. So never get confused with the simple topics. So first, what I'm doing here is inside a for loop, I'm specifying the condition. So inside for loop, what I've given here, 1 to 10 is the range. Next to that, I'm specifying the condition. So if when the value of I becomes 5, then stop the loop. That is why I'm using break here. Next to that, I'm adding a printing statement of what it will happen. So it will print the list of all values from 1 to 10. Then the loop sees 5 there. The loop will stop there itself. So here, it will start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When the condition got satisfied, when I see 5 there, the loop will get stopped. That is the use of break. That's why I told break is used for stopping the loop. Next, what I told is continue is used for skipping the particular part. So observe this clearly. So you will never get confusions on this. Continue. First, I'm specifying the range. For I in range, 1 to 10. Next to that, I'm specifying the condition. So the ones who are continuously following my channel might have clarity on this. What is the use of modulo operator? This is not percentage. It is modulo operator. When I divide a number by 2 and get reminder as 0, what does it mean? It is an even number, right? So I can use this condition to print all the odd numbers because using continue, it generally skips that number if it satisfies the condition. So from 1 to 10, if any number satisfies this condition, that number alone will not get printed. Other than the number that gets satisfied with this condition, all the other numbers will get printed. So from 1 to 10, 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. All these numbers, I mean 10 will not be included. So 2, 4, 8 and 10. All these numbers are divided by 2. So it is an even number. So other than these four numbers, all the numbers will get printed. So 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9. Exactly. This is what I told. Next, while loop. Generally, while loop is used when I have no idea of number of times this loop need to happen. This is what I told on the previous video itself, right? So here also it works the same way. I just know that the condition need to be satisfied. I have no idea about number of times this loops need to happen. So this thing that you should keep in mind. For loop is used when we know the exact number of time the loop needs to happen. But we'll be using while loop when I have no idea about the number of time it need to be repeated. So here, this is the syntax of while loop in Python. First, while, near to which will be specifying the condition. After which I'll be adding my printing statement or decisions that I need to make. That is why I've added as repeat this. Let's see a problem how while loop work. So for using a while loop, often I need to initiate the value. So for this particular problem statement, for counting 1 to 5, what I'm doing is I'm initiating the value of I as 1. Next to that, I'm using while loop. I'm specifying the condition as when the value of I needs 5. That is why I have given here I less than or equal to 5. If I meets the condition 5, then print the values until that. But I've just given 1 here and I'm specifying here the condition is less than or equal to 5. But exactly how the loop is going to happen. So that is why I'm specifying the condition as I plus equal to 1, which means I equal to I plus 1. So it works like this. 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3, 3 plus 1, 4, 4 plus 1, 5. The condition got satisfied. Then all these values will get printed. That is how while loop works. Until the condition got satisfied, the looping will get repeated. So generally in web pages or in websites, you might have seen until you enter the right password, you will keep on asking for passwords, right? Do you ever wonder how it happens? So here, just by using a while loop, you could solve that problem in a simple way. Let's see how it works. So inside a variable called password, I'm storing the value. I'm storing the string as Python. Only if the user enters the password of Python, it will stop. Until then, it will keep on asking for password. That is the goal of this problem. So in another variable guess, I'm adding an empty space. I'm creating an empty space. So don't consider it as an empty space. So this variable, for this variable, I'm going to get input from the user. Here I'm using while loop and next to that, then password is not equal to what they guessed. So if user enters a wrong password, that is the use of not equal to here. What my looping statement need to do is, it need to again ask my user enter password. The first step that my looping statement while loop will do here is, and it will ask for password by printing enter password. If user enters the wrong password, it will again ask for enter password. If again user enters the wrong password, it will again ask for password until user exactly enters this correct password as Python. So if Python enters the right password, this will give a printing statement as access granted. Let's see how it works. So now I'm running this cell. What I have to do is I'm typing hi here. So if I click on enter, it is asking enter password. Why? Because the password I've given here is wrong. Again, I'm giving a J. The loop continues until I give the right password of Python. Even if you give a wrong capital letter or instead of small letter for P, it will ask for password again and again. That is how specifically we use while loop in real life. So we have already seen about break and continue here in for loop itself, right? In while loop also we are going to see how break and continue could be used. Now tell me what is the use of break and continue. If you know the answer, drop them in comments. Let me read and figure out if you understood it clearly in the for loop itself. Yeah. So some people might have guessed it. How it works. Break is used to stop the loop when it meets the condition. Why we need continue then? It is used for skipping that particular part of my program whenever it meets the condition. For skipping and continuing, I need continue. For stopping the loop, I need break. So here, I'm initiating the value as 1 and I'm specifying the condition as when it is less than 10. So from 1 to 10. So this is the range here. This is what it means. Next to that, I am giving if I is equal to 7. Then my loop sees the value of I as 7. I am giving break here. What will break do? It will stop the loop. Whenever it sees 7, the loop will get stopped. So how this loop is going to work? Based on this condition. I plus equal to 1. So the value will get added with 1. 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3, 3 plus 1, 4. So likewise, when it means 6 plus 1 is equal to 7. So the condition got satisfied here, right? So if this condition meets, break will be applied. So the loop stops there. So what would be the output? In for loop, it will stop n minus 1, right? So when it sees 7, it will stop with 6 itself. So that 7 will not get printed here because when it sees 7, it should stop. That is what I've specified here. Next, I'm using continue. What is the use of continue? This is the same exact problem. So you might not have any confusions in syntax. So in while, as similar to this syntax, I'm using the syntax here. But the problem is quite different because the condition is different. So whenever I use I modulo 2 is equal to 0. If it sees the even number, you need to skip it. And this is the condition I specified here until it meets 10. So it will print all the odd numbers. So we have done the same thing using while loop with continue in Python. Next to that, we do have nested loops. So nested loops is generally used for creating patterns. And whenever I want to print patterns likewise, when whatever you might have seen some problems in 10th standard, right? Like tossing a coin, tossing something else for games. So you might have written like head, tail, tail, head, tail, likewise. So if I want to create something similar to that pattern, I could use for loop there. Nested for loop. Instead of for loop, I'm using another for loop. That is called as nested for loop. Now look into this. This is the syntax for nested for loop. First for I in range, next to that I'll be adding for j in range. So for I is the first variable, for j is the second variable. So for first variable, I'll be specifying the range. For second variable, I'll be specifying the range. So in this particular problem statement, I'm just trying to print number pairs of 1, 4 and 1, 4. So here we have given 4, but how for loop works? It works in a way 1 comma, I mean the starting number comma n minus 1. So it will take from 1 comma 1 to 3, and for the second for loop also, it will take from 1 to 3. Next to that, I am trying to print these two variables. So what would be the output? For 1, we have 1. 1 and 1 will get coordinated with 2. 1 comma 3. Next 2 comma 1. 2 and 2 will get combined with 3. For 3 it will get combined with 1. For 3 it will get combined with 2. 3 will get combined with 3. This is how the printing format will look like. So whenever I have a requirement similar to this, when I want my output in this format, then I could use nested for loop. Let's see another example of nested for loop. So whenever I want to print a pattern, if you are a beginner in coding, whenever you go for any interviews, they might give output like this. They'll just give the output like this and they'll ask you to write a program for that. Simply by using nested for loop, you can easily get an output from Python exactly as similar to this. Let's see how it works. So for that, I'll be using nested for loop. So for the first step, what I have to do is for first variable, I am specifying the range as 5. So the maximum number of rows and maximum number of columns here is 5. Next to that, for second variable, what I am telling to my for loop is, Initiate by adding values one by one. So that is what I'm giving in my inside for loop. Followed by that, I'm giving a printing statement similar to this. Inside my printing statement, I need to specify what I have to print. So after comma, I'm giving space here. Inside end, I'm giving space here. Why do we need that? So after every star, I need to give space. Next, it will move to another line. So to my second star, it will add one more star. For that, that is how this loop works. So for next third line, to two stars, it will add one more star. So for the remaining spaces, it will add space. So the output would be like the first line I'll have one star and the second line two stars until I get five stars on my fifth line. So this is what I've told. So in today's session, we have learned clearly about what is looping statements in Python with hands-on. We have seen the clear difference between for loop and while loop. We have seen how break and continue works. And finally, we have seen the use of patterns, how I could use for loop and while loop for creating patterns. We have also learned about range function in Python and we have learned about nested loops too. I believe you got a clarity on these topics with hands-on. We'll meet you on next video. Bye for now.